Before Albert Einstein devised his theories of special and general relativity, he came up with a puzzle to show off his intellectual prowess. This is Einstein's genius-level riddle. Alright, so I want to introduce the cast of characters in our riddle. There are going to be 5 different houses of different colors. Each of them will have a different person of nationality living in them. Each of these people will drink a different type of drink. They will keep a different type of pet, and they will smoke a different brand of cigar. The choices for cigars are Dunhill, Pall Mall, Prince, Blends, and Blue Master. The type of pets there are horses, birds, dogs, cats, and fish. The type of drinks there are beer, tea, water, milk, and coffee. The colors of the houses are green, white, yellow, blue, and red. And the nationalities are England, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Germany. Our task is to find out who owns the fish, and we're given a number of clues to follow. The Brit lives in the red house. The Swede keeps dogs as pets. The Dane drinks tea. The greenhouse is exactly to the left of the White House. The owner of the greenhouse drinks coffee. The person who smokes Pall Mall rears birds. The owner of the yellow house smokes Dunhill. The man living in the center house drinks milk. The Norwegian lives in the first house. The man who smokes Blends lives next to the one who keeps cats. The man who keeps horses lives next to the one who smokes Dunhill. The man who smokes Blue Master drinks beer. The German smokes Prince. The Norwegian lives next to the blue house. And the man who smokes Blends has a neighbor who drinks water. So with these clues, we are going to logically deduce who owns the fish. Pause the video now and take some time to see if you can figure this out. When doing a logic puzzle, it is often useful to use a chart like this to organize our ideas, to identify things that we know and things that can't be possible. Once we have this chart filled out, then we can start organizing these things in order from left to right. Einstein's genius-level riddle. The question is, who owns the fish? We'll go through each clue, and when we confirm something, we'll dot it in blue. When we know something is not true, we'll use a red dot. So the first clue reads, the Brit lives in the red house. So on my chart here, I'm going to give the British and red dot where they intersect right here. That's going to get a blue dot, meaning that we know the person from England, the British person, lives in the red house. Now we'll use our red dotter to indicate the things that are not in play. So that means if the British person lives in the red house, they do not live in any of the other colored houses. So we can mark all of these spaces here off with red. And at the same time, we can say that no other nationality lives in the red house. So we fill that part in with red. So now we can confirm that the red house belongs to the Brit. Okay, now what else can we deduce from this? Well, pretty much that's what we can deduce from this first clue. As we build the clues, we will be able to make some more logical conclusions. So the next one I want to look at is that the Swede keeps dogs as pets. So we'll indicate that with a blue marker. Swedish dog right here. That means we're going to want to mark the rest of the column that one's in with red, and the rest of the row that's in with red as well. So that'll be our strategy here, is every time we confirm something is true, we can cancel out everything else in that column and everything else in that row. So that's the same thing as saying that no one else has dogs and the Swede has no other pets. Also, the Swede is not the Brit. That's one thing we can also conclude. So the Swede does not live in the red house. But we already knew that. We had already marked that off, that the Swede does not live in the red house. But here's how we think about drawing logical conclusions. Now, another conclusion we can draw from this, since the Swede rears dogs, has dogs, the dogs are not in the red house. So that's actually something we can mark off for dogs. Dogs do not belong in the red house. Okay, so now we'll keep going. The Dane drinks tea. So let's mark that off with blue. I'll go on the row of Dane, I'll mark off tea. And that means that I can cancel out anything in that column. Nobody else drinks tea. And the Dane does not drink any other drinks. Now, another conclusion we can draw from this is that tea is not drank with dogs. Since the Swede keeps dogs, tea is not drank with dogs. So we can put a red mark with tea and dogs right here. Tea is not drank in the red house. So for tea, we can make a red marking for the red house. As we fill in the chart, we'll see the chart helps us deduce more and more things. The greenhouse drinks coffee. Alright, so we're going to mark that off in blue. The greenhouse, we'll go down the column for the greenhouse and we'll mark off where coffee is. That'll be right here. And so if that's where we have a positive identification, we can mark off and cancel out anything in that row and anything in that column. That means that in the greenhouse, the other drinks are not drank, and coffee is not drank in any of the other houses. Next, the person who is a Pall Mall smoker rears birds. So that's a positive identification. So we'll go across the row for Pall Mall, and we'll check off birds. And that'll give us the ability to then cancel out anything else left in that row and anything else left in that column. So we can then deduce that no other animals are going to be going with the person who smokes Pall Mall, and that no other smoker has birds. Now, since we also know that the Swede keeps dogs, we can say for sure that the Swede does not smoke Pall Mall. So for the Swedish, we're going to go across that row and we're going to cross off Pall Mall. Okay, so as you see, we've really gone to filling in this chart very nicely, and we're just going to continue going through some of these clues and let them allow us to draw conclusions from them. So the next one we're going to look at is that the yellow house smokes Dunhill. So let's mark that with blue. The yellow house down that column smokes Dunhill. So our positive identification is right there. That's going to allow us to, of course, cancel everything else in that row and anything else in that column. Another way to say that is that in the yellow house, only Dunhill is smoked. And Dunhill is only going to happen in the yellow house, so we don't have Dunhill happening in any other colored houses. Now, since birds go with Pall Mall smokers, then that means that birds are not in the yellow house. So we can go to the yellow house and cross birds off the list. We can also say that the Swede is not in the yellow house. The Swede is not in the yellow house. We know Brits are not in the yellow house, but that's something we already knew. And we know that the Swede does not smoke Dunhill. So the Swede does not smoke Dunhill. The Brit does not smoke Dunhill. The Brit does not smoke Dunhill. Dog owners don't smoke Dunhill. Dog owners do not smoke Dunhill, so for across from Dunhill, we're going to cross off dogs. Dogs are not in the yellow house. Dogs are not in the yellow house, so down through the column of yellow, I'm going to cross off dogs. These are all logical conclusions that come from what we know so far, stemming from the yellow house smokes Dunhill. Okay, so we've gotten through a few of these. Let's cross off the list what we've done so far. So we're up to here now. The man living in the center house drinks milk. Now, again, that's an ordering thing, so we'll keep that in our back pocket. Let's highlight that in yellow. The man living in the center house drinks milk. The Norwegian lives in the first house. Okay, so that's another important clue about ordering. But from that we can deduce something about what is not true, and that would be that the Norwegian does not drink milk. So the Norwegian does not have milk as a beverage choice. So we're going to cross that off the list for the Norwegian. Next is the man who smokes blends lives next to cats. So even though that's an ordering thing, we can deduce that blend smokers do not own cats. So across from blend, we're going to cross off cats on our list. Horses are kept next to Dunhill smokers. The man who keeps horses lives next to the man who smokes Dunhill. Horses are kept next to Dunhill smokers. Therefore, horses are not kept with Dunhill smokers. So down along with Dunhill, we're going to cross off the list horses. Horses, therefore, are not in the yellow house. So yellow house, we're going to cross horses off from that list. Horses are next to the yellow house. We're going to keep that in mind. Next, Blue Master smokers drink beer. This is a positive identification. So along with Blue Master, we'll go over to beer, make a positive identification there, and cross everything off in its row, everything off in its column there. All right, so no other smoker drinks beer, and Blue Master smokers only drink beer. Now, this would indicate to us that since the Dane drinks tea, the Dane does not smoke Blue Master. The Dane does not smoke Blue Master, so let's cross that off the Dane's list. This would also indicate to us that the greenhouse does not smoke Blue Master. So the greenhouse, if we go down, we're going to cross Blue Master off its list, since greenhouse people drink coffee. The yellow house does not drink beer because they do not smoke Blue Master in the yellow house. Tea drinkers do not smoke Blue Master, but we knew that already. Alright, so we're making some real progress on this genius level problem. Let's not quit now, let's keep going. We see that the German smokes Prince, another positive identification. German smokes Prince. That means we can cut off anything in the column and row in that little box there and eliminate all those there. Good. So no other nationality smokes Prince, and the German only smokes Prince. Now, the German does not drink beer, since the German smokes Prince and Blue Master smokers drink beer. So the German does not drink beer. Sounds weird, right? The Norwegian lives next to the Blue House. Next to the Blue House. Therefore, the Norwegian does not live in the Blue House. The Blue House is not the first house. So the Blue House is going to be the second house. So we'll keep that in mind. Maybe we'll just write that down somewhere. Actually, we can start now addressing the ordering of our diagram here. So let's start thinking about this. Which one was the first house? The first house is not the Blue House, but the second house is the Blue House. Okay, so let's put into our final diagram here that the Blue House is our second house. All right, we'll keep that there. We also know something about who lives in the first house. The Norwegian lives in the first house. So we can put that in our chart as well. Let's enter in that the nationality in the first house is the Norwegian. Okay, some other things that we can deduce here. That the person who lives in the center house drinks milk. Okay, so going back to the center house, that would be house number 3 here. The drink in the center house is milk. Okay, now we can look at also the fact that the greenhouse is exactly to the left of the White House. So therefore, the greenhouse could not be house number 1, nor could it be house number 3. But since milk is drank in the center house, and we know greenhouse people drink coffee, we can deduce that the greenhouse is this number 4 house, and the White House, which I'll just give a gray color here, is the number 5 house. So now that would make the middle house have to be, well, let's see which colors we can deduce that from. Going back here, the red house is the British house. The next clue about this would be that the Norwegian does not drink coffee. All right, because the Norwegian lives in the first house. Okay, and coffee is drank in the greenhouse. Greenhouse is not the first house. Okay, so let's go to the Norwegian. The Norwegian does not drink coffee, so we'll put a red dot right there. The Blue House does not drink milk or coffee because the Blue House is the second house. So the blue house does not drink milk. It does not drink coffee, but we already knew about the coffee there. Okay, so that's something we can fill in there. And the Norwegian lives in the first house, so it does not live in the greenhouse or White House. So the Norwegian does not live in the greenhouse nor the White House. Well, if we look at what the Norwegian can live in, then we can only deduce that the Norwegian lives in the yellow house. Okay, so that means that we can cross off some of the other pieces there. The Danish person does not live in the yellow house, and the German person does not live in the yellow house either. All right, so the Norwegian lives in the yellow house, wherever the yellow house is. Now, is the yellow house in the middle, or is the yellow house the first house? We'll see if we can figure this out in just a moment. Well, the Norwegian lives in the yellow house, making the first house yellow, right? Because the Norwegian lives in the first house. So, going back to our diagram, we can make the first house yellow, and by deduction, our middle house is the red house. Okay, and so now we're really on our way to now being able to fill in this chart a little bit more. Okay, so we know that the Brit lives in the red house. Good. We know that coffee is drank in the greenhouse. We know that Dunhill, right, if we look at Dunhill, is smoked in the yellow house. The Dane and the German do not live in the yellow house, and also the Brit lives in the red house, and so the Brit drinks milk. Therefore, the white and the yellow house do not drink milk. We could maybe get that out of the way. So they do not drink milk. That was the white and the yellow house do not drink milk. Therefore, milk is drank in, well, we knew that already. We could actually confirm that there. But that means we can also cross off this column and fill in more of the chart. Okay, so now we definitively know who drinks milk and who drinks coffee, or at least which house. Okay, so the Norwegian does not drink milk or coffee. We knew about the milk, but we didn't know about the coffee before, so let's mark that off on our diagram there. This is a bit lengthy, yes, and it takes patience to get through one of these logic puzzles, but the more you build and the more you're able to, work out, the closer and closer you can get. Now, since Blue Master drinkers drink beer, and the Norwegian does not live in the White House, then what do they drink in the Yellow House? Well, since we already know that tea is drank by the Dane, and the Dane doesn't live in the Yellow House, tea is not in the Yellow House. Therefore, water must be in the Yellow House. And so now, let's take a look at what else we can deduce here. We're almost there, and if you've been keeping up with us, you're doing an excellent job. Maybe you've already solved this before I have. Let's keep going. The blend smoker lives next to the water drinker. We see that the first house is the water drinker. So therefore, the blend smoker would be in the blue house. Okay, so let's add that to our chart. The blue house smokes blend. Therefore, nobody else smokes blend. Blue house knows nothing else there. Okay. Since Blue Master smokers drink beer, and the Brit drinks milk, the Brit does not smoke Blue Master. The Brit does not smoke Blue Master. Now the Brit either smokes Pall Mall or blend. Since we do not know what the Brit drinks, we just know it doesn't drink tea, strangely enough, then we can deduce, well, if the Brit smoked blend, then the Brit would live in the blue house. We know the Brit lives in the red house. Therefore, the Brit does not smoke blend and must smoke Pall Mall. Okay, so the Brit smokes Pall Mall. Okay, that means that the Dane smokes blend. The Dane must smoke blend because the Dane cannot smoke Pall Mall. And Dunhill is smoked in the yellow house, and the Dane does not live in the yellow house. So the Norwegian lives in the yellow house. So that's crossed off the list there. We can cross off Swedish blend and also Norwegian blend as well. So we're left with a couple of options, and since the Swedish only has one choice, we have to fill that in with blue, literally the Blue Master blend for Swedish, and that would have to mean that the Dunhill goes with the Norwegian, which is our conclusion from before. So we've completed all the blends here, and let's fill them in. So we have the Brit with Pall Mall, we have Dunhill with the Norwegian, okay, we have already knew that. We have blend with the Dane, but we don't know where the Dane lives. Blend, oh, the blend is in Blue House, so the Dane must live in the Blue House. Okay, whoops. The Dane must live in the Blue House. Okay, good. Now, the smoker of the Blue Master was Swedish, okay, and so Blue Master must be in, well, is the Swede in the greenhouse or the White House? Let's see. People in the greenhouse drink coffee. The man who smokes Blue Master drinks beer. Smokes Blue Master drinks beer. Since we know Blue House is blend, that's not there. And since every other house has a drink, we're going to say beer here. And the cigar would have to be Blue Master. So beer and Blue Masters happen in the White House because blend happens in the Blue House and coffee happens in the greenhouse. Okay, so beer and Blue Master at the White House has to be filled in. White House gets beer and Blue Master. And therefore we can chop off anything else in that column and row. Anything off the column and row. Alright, now looking at whatever's left over. Since water is drank in the yellow house, that must mean that tea is drank in the Blue House, since that's the only leftover option. Water cannot be drank in the Blue House. So, down here, the missing drink. It's filled in there. The missing cigar we can also fill in here, so the one we were missing was Prince. And since we know the German smokes Prince, we can fill in the German's nationality right there. That would leave the last nationality to be, we have the Swede. Dogs are kept with the Swede, so we can fill that in. Alright, we know pet-wise, what else do we know? The Pall Mall smoker has the birds. So birds are in the red house. The man who keeps horses lives next to the man who smokes Dunhill. Ah, horses must be the blue house. Very good. And since the two pets that are left are cats and the fish, obviously, we're trying to find out who owns the fish. We just have to figure out who owns the cats. Looking at our clues here, the man who smokes blends lives next to the person who keeps cats. So the person who keeps cats has to be the first house, which would make the fish live in the greenhouse. So there's your answer, ladies and gentlemen. We finally did it. The German is the one who keeps the fish in the greenhouse. Let's just write in those colors just for completion here. So this was yellow, this was blue, this was red, this was green, and this one was white. The power of deduction wins again. This one was a genius level puzzle for sure. It took persistence, it took patience, and it took the belief that we could do it. And I knew that you could do it, and